Okay, so welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to do a deep dive on something pretty fascinating. Some recent developments that I think have caught a lot of people's attention up in the Arctic, basically. Kind of some tension bubbling up between the United States and Denmark over Greenland. And, you've probably seen some headlines about this. And
yes, for sure.
We're going to sort of break down what exactly is going on, who are the players, and most importantly, what does this mean for the future of security in the Arctic?
Absolutely. And to really get into this, we've got a bunch of different sources here, a lot of recent news articles, some official statements, all really from late March 2025.
Exactly. So we're talking like just the past few days here. So this is all very, very fresh. And I think our goal here is to go a little bit beyond just the, sort of surface level headlines and try to understand, what are some of the historical currents that are feeding into this, where are the specific points of disagreement. And then, what are some of the potential long-term consequences of all of this? So
Absolutely.
Let's jump in.
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, I think one of the first things we have to talk about is this kind of background noise, if you will, that's been going on for a while. This really goes back to President Trump's kind of repeated interest in acquiring Greenland.
Yes.
And this has come up several times and sort of it's always been sort of met with a mix of like incredulity and alarm. I mean, is this serious or is he joking? But it seems like, he's made these comments on numerous occasions. He's talked about the possibility of the U.S. buying Greenland.
Right.
He's also been quite critical of Denmark's efforts at, providing security up in the Arctic.
Right.
And then, he's even sort of hinted at, maybe we have to use some pressure, whether it's military or economic, to get what we want.
Exactly.
So that history, right, is not just some sort of, footnote. It's the context in which all of these recent events are being interpreted, right? And it explains a lot of the apprehension that you see both in Copenhagen and Nuuk.
Absolutely. It's that the U.S. has had a long-standing interest in Greenland. And this isn't just about, sort of a passing fancy or whim. It reflects, deeper strategic concerns about, access to resources, the changing Arctic environment.
Yeah, and this history, I think, is really crucial because it kind of reframes Vice President Vance's recent visit to Greenland, right? I mean, it didn't just come out of nowhere, especially, but you consider that he himself has also been pretty critical of Denmark's security efforts in the Arctic.
Yeah, Vance had made comments previously expressing, skepticism about Denmark's commitment to security. So his trip and his remarks kind of fit into that larger pattern of unease.
And so that's all very interesting, especially when you contrast that with Denmark's announcement back in January of 2025. Where they pledged a very substantial investment, 14.6 billion Danish kroner. Which is about $2.1 billion U.S. specifically for bolstering Arctic security.
Right.
And this included things like acquiring new naval vessels, drones, even satellite capabilities. So they were already taking concrete steps, it seems, to kind of beef up their presence and their capabilities.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because that really does suggest that, Denmark was aware of these changing dynamics in the Arctic and was already moving to kind of bolster their own ability to operate there.
And what do you make of those specific, things that they decided to invest in?
Well, yeah, I mean, the naval vessels clearly kind of signal a commitment to maintaining a presence, in the waters around Greenland.
The drones provide, a really enhanced surveillance capability across these vast distances. And the satellites are all about intelligence and communication, right? So it's not just about spending money. It's about getting specific capabilities that, help them.
Yeah, exactly.
Project power. And have a better understanding of what's going on.
It's a strategic move for sure.
So let's talk about Vance's visit because it took place on Friday, March 28th.
Yeah.
He went to Pituffik Space Base, which is a U.S. military facility in Greenland.
Yeah.
Second Lady Vance was there, and a number of other high-ranking U.S. officials. But it's interesting because, the trip itself had been scaled back.
Right.
Apparently because both Greenlanders and Danes had expressed reservations about the initial plans. They felt like they hadn't really been consulted adequately. And so they sort of, they kind of trimmed down.
Yeah, it seems like they kind of pushed back a little bit and said, we need to be more involved in this.
Exactly. And during the visit, Vance, didn't really hold back
No.
in terms of expressing his concerns.
Right.
He brought up, concerns about the level of security at the base.
Right.
He talked about the fact that he felt that Denmark hasn't invested enough in Greenland and its security more broadly. And he even suggested that Greenlanders, might be better off under U.S. protection.
Right.
Especially given the threats posed by, countries like Russia and China.
Exactly.
And then he also raised this really, really sensitive issue of Greenland's potential independence from Denmark, saying that the U.S. respects Greenland's right to self-determination and sort of anticipating a future where they are independent. And then even saying that, once that happens, the U.S. would be open to direct conversations with an independent Greenland.
Wow.
So, I mean, given all of that, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he's on what is still Danish territory, making these pretty pointed comments, it's not really surprising that Denmark had a very strong reaction.
Yeah.
And it was immediate.
Yeah.
The foreign minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, he put out a video message late at night. And it's interesting, this video message wasn't, a standard diplomatic communique.
Right.
It was addressed specifically to the American people.
Yeah, to the American people. That's so interesting.
Right. And I think that in itself is quite significant, right?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of going over the heads of the official channels and appealing directly to, public opinion in the U.S. And then in terms of the content of the message, he was very, very clear that he disapproved of the tone of the U.S. communication, calling it disrespectful. He said, "This is not how you speak to your close allies."
Wow.
So, I mean, that really kind of captured the depth of their displeasure.
Yeah.
Now, despite that, he did go on to reaffirm the importance of the U.S.-Danish alliance. But I think the fact that he felt the need to say that, really kind of underscored how strong the reaction was.
Yeah.
But then, interestingly, he also said that, Denmark is open to discussing a potential increase in the U.S. military presence in Greenland. He acknowledged that the security situation in the Arctic is changing, which kind of, goes back to some of the things that Vance was saying, but just framed in a very, very different way.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting that he's sort of, holding these two things at the same time. We're really upset about how you've behaved, but we're still open to, working with you on this issue.
All right.
And then the reaction from Denmark, it went beyond just the video message.
Yeah.
Rasmussen took to social media the next day on Saturday, March 29th, to reiterate his criticism, again emphasizing that, Denmark is increasing its investments in Arctic security.
Right.
And that they're committed to cooperating with the U.S., but, that this tone was not acceptable. And then on top of that, you had hundreds of protesters outside the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen.
Wow.
With signs saying things like, "Back off USA." So, there's a clear sense of public disapproval of how the U.S. has handled this. And then, to top it all off, even King Frederick X felt compelled to weigh in. He put out a message on Facebook expressing his continued affection for Greenland.
Wow.
And solidarity with the people of Greenland. So, I mean, it's pretty clear that this has really struck a nerve in Denmark.
For sure.
Now, what about Greenland itself?
Yeah.
I mean, how did the government in Nuuk respond to all of this?
So the Greenlandic government, they announced a new coalition government with Jens Frederick Nielsen as the leader. And a lot of people saw this as a way of, showing strength and unity, particularly given Trump's, past comments about annexing Greenland.
Exactly.
So they're saying, hey, we're all together on this.
And what's really interesting, too, is that they didn't actually meet with Vance.
Right. They didn't meet with him.
While he was there.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a pretty strong signal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. We're not going to roll out the red carpet for you.
Yeah.
Given everything that's been said.
Yeah.
And, we also heard directly from Greenland's foreign minister, Vivian Motzfeldt. She spoke to CBS News and she said that, Greenland wants cooperation with the U.S.
Yeah.
But she also said very explicitly that they reject any notion of domination. And I thought this quote was really interesting. She said, "You just don't take over, you speak and you talk."
Yeah.
Right. Which I think really captures that, the importance that they place on dialogue and, being treated with respect.
Yeah.
And it seems that, the overwhelming sentiment within Greenland is against becoming part of the United States.
Yes.
There was a recent poll that showed 85%
Wow. 85%.
of Greenlanders do not want to be part of the U.S. So
Yeah,
that's a pretty clear message.
absolutely.
So what happens next? I mean, Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. She announced that she's going to be visiting Greenland next week.
Okay.
And the goal is to strengthen the bond between Denmark and Greenland and to discuss, how to cooperate going forward in light of, everything that's happened with Vance's visit and, kind of this new coalition government in Nuuk.
Right.
So they're clearly trying to, kind of reaffirm that relationship.
Absolutely.
It's also, I think, worth noting that the U.S. military presence in Greenland, hasn't always been as limited as it is now, right?
Yeah.
Historically, there were more than a dozen U.S. installations.
Wow.
In Greenland, thousands of soldiers even had that experimental nuclear-powered subterranean base.
Yeah, that's what.
Camp Centuries. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was a very different era, right? And the fact that it's been reduced to just Pituffik Space Base with a couple hundred soldiers, speaks to, how the security landscape has changed.
Absolutely.
And Rasmussen, interestingly, he specifically referenced the 1951 defense agreement between Denmark and the U.S.
Right.
And he said that, that agreement already offers ample opportunity for the United States to have a much stronger military presence in Greenland
Wow.
if they want it. So,
Right.
what he's essentially saying is,
Yeah.
we're not opposed to a greater U.S. military role, but it has to happen within the existing framework,
Right.
and it has to respect our sovereignty
Yeah.
and Greenland's autonomy.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, doing whatever you want.
Right.
So trying to kind of boil all of this down.
Yeah.
What are the really fundamental points of friction here?
Well, at the heart of it, I think you've got this clash between the U.S. strategic interests in Greenland and the way they've gone about pursuing those interests.
Right.
And then on the other side, you've got Denmark's sovereignty over the territory and Greenland's desire for self-determination.
Yeah.
They want to be treated with respect. They want to be part of the conversation. And then on top of that, you've got, the U.S. criticizing Denmark's security efforts while Denmark is saying, hey, we're a strong and committed ally.
Right.
We're doing our part.
Exactly. And the fact that, Trump has been so vocal about wanting to acquire Greenland,
Right.
that really hangs over all of this.
It does.
And it kind of, it colors everything.
Yeah.
And then, there's recent reports that he's been saying things like, we have to have the territory.
Yeah, it's a must have.
Right. So it's clear that, this is still very much a live issue for him.
Absolutely.
But despite all of this, Denmark has said that they're willing to discuss a larger U.S. military presence. Right. So despite feeling disrespected,
Right.
they're still open to cooperation.
They're still at the table.
And their investment in Arctic security really underscores that.
It does.
They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
And Greenland, they want cooperation,
Yeah.
but they don't want to be dominated.
Mm.
They want to be treated as an equal partner.
Yeah. A respectful partnership is key.
And they've made it very clear they don't want to be part of the U.S.
Right.
So it seems like, we're really seeing a shift here
Yeah.
in the Arctic.
Yeah. The Arctic is not the quiet backwater that it used to be.
Right. It's becoming much more of a geopolitical hotspot.
Absolutely.
So for you, the listener, the bottom line here is this is a serious diplomatic rift.
Uh-huh.
It's driven by the U.S. approach to Greenland. Denmark feels disrespected,
Yeah.
but they're still willing to cooperate on security.
They're still open.
And Greenland wants self-determination and respectful dialogue.
Exactly.
So the question I think for everyone to consider is,
Yeah.
given all of this, right, given how strongly Greenland feels about this, given that Denmark has said, we're willing to work with you, what would a constructive long-term strategy for the U.S. look like?
Yeah.
How can they engage in a way
How can they be a good partner?
that actually, achieves their goals without alienating everyone?
Right. And what are the implications, if these tensions continue to escalate?
Yeah.
Or if they find a way to, resolve them? What does that mean for the balance of power in the Arctic?
Yeah, I think it's
a really interesting,
a fascinating question.
fascinating moment.
And I think we're going to be watching this very closely
Absolutely, me too.
in the months and years to come.
Yeah, this is not going away.
So thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be back soon with more
Yeah, we'll be back.
deep dives on the most important issues of the day.
Absolutely.
Until then,
Take care.
take care.
Bye.